So I've been thinking about expectations. Hi, my name is Konstantin and this is the Konstadrome.
If you're new to the channel, click that subscribe button so that you never miss a new video.
So I've been thinking about value.
Expectations.
What?
Value was last time. It's expectations this time. Just roll the intro. Just roll it. Roll it.
So I've been thinking about expectations. You know, like that one time when you were a kid and you got that karaoke machine for your birthday? So you decided to be a singer. And every single relative told you that you were really good. And I mean like really, really good. So you started practicing and practicing and practicing. And when you got older, you got yourself a paper route so you could earn a little bit of money. And when you got to be a teenager, you have amassed enough money so that you could build a little tiny recording studio in your room. And you knew you were getting good. And I mean like really, really good when you could sing the main vocals and the back vocal line at the same time. So there it was, the moment of truth. You're standing in line for the audition for the American Idol. You get up on that stage, your music starts playing, you start singing, and the second you hit the back vocals, bah! This is it. What have I done? I have spent all my life believing what people have been telling me without even checking if that was true or not, without checking if I had potential or not. I bought all these things, I've done all the practice. Who am I? Who am I? Then, a wave of heat flashes over you and you find yourself standing on top of the mountain with your arms spread, screaming, "Who am I?" And then you realize, then you know. That's right. You're Jackie Chan in 1998 classic Who Am I? Written and directed by Jackie Chan, starring Jackie Chan. But wait a minute. If he does not know who he is, how can you know who he is? But you have seen the movie. You know how he is. You know who he is. You know how this ends. All you have to do is just follow the script and everything is gonna be alright. But wait, they might find you out. What if they find you out? But you have a secret weapon. You have taken a drama class in high school and you know that an actor should be in the moment and that he should be reactive instead of just anticipating everything. So you just stay there in the moment and you know that you'll be alright. You'll be just alright. Now, was that what you were expecting? Was that a good trade? Was that good value?
Roll it.
What I mean by expectations is something that we consider to be the most likely outcome or something that we consider to be the most likely happenstance. Basically, expectations are our beliefs based on the future that may come true or may not come true. And if they do come true, then we end up happy. And if they don't, then we end up disappointed. And we'll talk about disappointment just a little bit later. We can't talk about expectations without talking about authority. Because a lot of our expectations, especially as kids and even as adults, are built and reinforced by those who we perceive to be figures of authority. And you might be saying, "Konstantin, that's ridiculous. I'm not a child. I don't just listen to anyone who has authority." And if that's the case, then you might actually be in the minority. You see, in 1961, Stanley Milgram decided to do an experiment on authority. Now, as far as participants were concerned, they didn't really know what they were getting themselves into. They thought this was an experiment on learning. Now, the way this was set up was pretty simple. Participant 1 would be in one room with a giant machine that he would use to administer electrical shocks. Now, in the same room with participant 1 was a man in a white lab coat with glasses and a clipboard, basically resembling all the features of a reputable scientist. Now, in another room, there would be participant number 2, who would be hooked up to the same machine, receiving the said electrical shocks. Now, the way this was supposed to go was pretty simple. Participant number 1 would ask participant number 2 a series of questions, questions, and any time participant number 2 would answer wrong to a question, participant number 1 would administer an electrical shock. Now, electrical shock started at 15 volts, and each consecutive electrical shock increased by 15 volts. So 15, 30, 45, 60, and so on, all the way up to 400 volts. Now, what participant 1 didn't know is that there really was no participant 2, that nobody was in the room hooked up to the machine actually receiving electrical shocks. Instead, there was an audio recording with the scripted answers to the questions that he was asking and reactions to the shocks that he was administering. Now, when Milgram first proposed this study to a lot of psychologists, they said that he was out of his mind, that no one would go all the way to 400 volts. And they predicted that only about 1% of people would actually go all the way to 400 volts. Now, in reality, 66% of people went all the way to 400 volts. Because Milgram's study was done only on male subjects, it was replicated many times after that with both male and female subjects, as well as subjects of different age groups, and the results were rather similar almost every time, about 66%. However, an interesting thing to note about this study was that when a man in the room with participant number 1 wasn't wearing a lab coat and wasn't dressed in a manner that was resembling a scientist and was simply wearing casual wear like jeans and a sweater, then the amount of people who went all the way to 400 volts decreased significantly. And when there was no man in the room at all, then almost no one went to 400 volts. Now, if you've never heard about this study, you might be saying, Konstantin, that is horrible. Jackie Chan would never do this, and neither would I. But let's suppose this milligram guy is real. What is it exactly about authority that makes people do things and believe others exactly? And, well, it's power. And since we're on this train of defining everything, why don't we just tackle power while we're at it? Actually, do you want to take this one? Mm-hmm. Power is in inflicting pain and humiliation. Power is in tearing human minds to pieces and putting them back together in new shapes of your own choosing. Do you begin to see, then, what kind of expectations we are creating? It is the exact opposite of the stupid, hedonistic... What?
I'll take it from there.
Although a lot of times power can be associated with physical attributes and inflicting pain, what we are talking about specifically in terms of authority and when it comes to expectations is experience and status and credibility and knowledge. Oh, you're such a nerd. Okay, now I can see you saying, what the hell does that have to do with anything that we've been talking about so far? Okay, imagine you're at a dinner party, and now the conversation turns towards travel, and now some guy is talking about the Grand Canyon, and personally, you haven't been to the Grand Canyon, but that guy has, and so because of his experience and his documented status as a traveler, in this particular conversation, he has more power than you. And because of that, he's more of an authority figure than you. And if anyone is going to make any sort of expectations about the Grand Canyon or traveling to the Grand Canyon, then they're more likely to form them on what that guy is saying instead of you. But seriously though, you don't need to form any sort of expectations on the Grand Canyon. You just need to go. If you haven't been, you just need to go. If you stand by the Grand Canyon, you can't even tell how deep is that? I don't know. It's just layers and layers and layers of rocks. Like, was there a river there? I don't know. Maybe once. Who knows? I don't know. Let's bring a geologist. Let's find out. It's crazy. No, you gotta go. You just gotta see it. Oh my God. Wow. He's just, whoa. Now that we have all the ingredients, let's talk about what is it and who is it exactly that build up and shape our expectations. Now, I probably should have mentioned this before, but the reason we're talking about expectations is because they're a huge contributor to the levels of our happiness. And if our expectations don't get fulfilled, we often feel disappointed. And don't worry, we'll talk about disappointments a little bit later, and we'll definitely cover happiness in a whole different episode of its own. Now, you probably have guessed this one, and it will surely come at no surprise that the first people who shape and build up our expectations are our parents. For the first couple of years of any child's life, their parents and their family, for the most part, will be their only points of contact. And every single adult that they meet will seem more knowledgeable and like they know what they're talking about. Therefore, it's easy to see how children will listen to, believe, and make adults their authority figures. It goes without saying that every single parent wants the best for their child, and that parental and familial love is very much unconditional. However, it's the same want and the same unconditional love that can be a double-edged sword. Because children aren't born with the preset worldview, and because parents want the best for their children, sometimes they tend to paint the world in different colors, brighter colors. And one of the main reasons that they might do this could be simply because they want their kids to grow up in a better world than what it actually is. Or maybe they want them to see a world that's actually better than what it is. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing to do, nor am I saying that we should start introducing children to the horrors of this world. Absolutely not. However, what I am saying is that if the color palette isn't adjusted as the child grows, then whenever he tries to step out into the world, he might find that reality actually does not match his expectations. And it is exactly this gap between reality and expectations that might cause a lot of problems to children, teenagers, and even adolescents. Sometimes they might feel alienated, other times they might have troubles adjusting, and in some cases they might even have full-on breakdowns. And at this time you might be saying, "Are you even a father? You stay the hell away from my kids." To which, yes, I will, but also, actually, you know what? No, I'm just kidding. Look, I'm not telling anyone how to parent, nor am I saying that children should disbelieve and disregard what their parents are saying. All I'm saying is that based on my experience and the experiences of many other people, it would have helped if our expectations were just a little bit closer to reality. And if you're one of those people who's saying, "What even is reality?" Well, don't you worry, we'll cover that in a whole different episode. A few more things that might be right under our nose but do build up and shape our expectations are media and the general normalization of things. And while those are related, we'll try to talk about them one by one and sneak in a little bit of disappointment in between. While media is a ginormous topic that we won't even scratch the surface of during this conversation, one of the things that media does when it comes to expectations is sort of omit the truth. One of the reasons people might be disappointed with their career of choice could be because they formed their expectations about the said job based on how the media portrayed it. For example, if we only see lawyers in the courtroom, then we might think that being a lawyer looks something like this. Objection, 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 objection. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we cannot allow this gross miscarriage of justice to happen. Objection, 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 objection. Now might I remind you that you're under oath, that you swore to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. Now you have said that you have been in your house and do not know the victim nor have ever been in this house, but we have found your DNA all over the place. Your Honor, arrest my case. Objection. In reality, what lawyers mostly do is read pages and pages and pages of long texts and analyze them. In fact, some lawyers never get to go to court. And I know what you might be thinking. I know, but you'd be surprised how many people say, "Well, I like to argue with people. I'll just become a lawyer." Another good example of this is models. We see them in the fashion shows, we see them elegantly walk down a catwalk. However, what we don't see is all the people they get to meet, all the celebrities they get to party with, and all the drugs they get to consume. Oh my God, that sounds amazing. Hey, do you think I could do it? You think I got it? Check this out, check this out. What we don't see is all the diets and all the restrictions, and that sometimes you might just have to do this for 3, 4, or 5 hours. And I know what you might be saying. You might be saying that this is normal and that some things just come with the job. And yes, that's fine. I'm not trying to discourage anyone from taking up a particular career. Nor am I saying that career representation in the media is a bad idea. Quite the opposite. I actually think that the huge diversity of career representation that we currently have in the media is a great thing, and that it brings a lot more people into the fields that we couldn't before. What I am saying, however, is that it's important to know the other side of the coin, so to speak, so that we don't get disappointed in the end. You gotta stop. That's not normal. Come on. Normal? Normal? Oh, okay. You mean like those pictures on like the covers of magazines, right? Where like they take a picture of somebody and then they like edit it a little bit, like they like trim a little here and they're like cut a little here, like remove this part right here and then enhance a little bit here. You mean like that normal, right? And then like that goes on a cover of a magazine and then people see it and they're like, yeah, that's fine, that's normal. And so it's normalized now and like everybody thinks that's like normal, and then because it's normal, people look at it and people are like, oh, that's totally achievable, and then they expect to look like that, and then they try and then they fail because it's impossible to attain something that's not real. Okay, you mean like that normal? Or actually, yeah. How about like when you want to travel somewhere? You mean like when you want to travel somewhere normal? Like when you look at a postcard or like pictures on a traveling website and you're like, oh, that looks pretty normal. And you know what they say, right? You know what they say, like grass is always greener on the other side. But you know what? Grass is actually greener in all of these pictures because they've been color corrected. Things have been altered. So you look at them and it's like, oh, that's pretty great. And then you get there and the grass is a little yellow. It's not as green. The sky is not as blue. The water is not as clear, and you're disappointed because you were expecting something that wasn't there, something fabricated. Okay, you mean like that normal, huh?
Come on, man, it happened once. It's in the past.
The past? Oh yeah. Let's talk about the past. You know, like one of those times when you try something for the very first time and it feels amazing, right? And so every other time that you try the same thing, you expect it to be just as good as it was the first time. All right. But it's never going to be the same. It's never going to be the same because the world has changed. Your world has changed. The world before you tried that thing for the first time was much smaller. Now you have had more experiences. The world is much different now. It's never going to be the same like it was the first time. But you keep trying and you keep getting and you keep expecting and you think it's going to be just as good, but it's never. It's just always just missing something. It's never just as good as you. So you're always disappointed. You know who does that? Drug addicts. Yeah. Drug addicts do that. It's called chasing the dragon. It's when they get high for the very first time, and high is so good, it's so good. They want to get it again. But they just keep trying and keep getting and keep buying and keep getting high. But they can't get it. You know why it's called chasing the dragon? Because you never catch it. You never catch the dragon. It's not called catching the dragon. It's called chasing the dragon because you chase it and chase it and chase it. Well, those are some other ways that we can build up and shape expectations, and how can they potentially turn into disappointments. But before we go today, I'd like to talk about one more instance of expectations. In this particular instance, we're not necessarily building our own expectations as much as we're buying into already existing ones. What I mean by that is that we're buying into the idea of something appealing and at the same time very doable. And we have talked about this in our previous episode about value, and you should check it out. It's pretty good. For example, you see an ad of an SUV. Now the ad says that it can carry a full family very comfortably while being able to climb mountains, go over hills, traverse all sorts of rocky and muddy terrain, and that it can... Actually, would you like to tell them where the SUV can take them? The Grand Canyon. It can take you to the Grand Canyon. Have you been? You haven't been yet. Oh, you simply have to go. It's the best. It's amazing. You can take a picture of the Grand Canyon, and it's not gonna be as good as the thing itself. You can take that picture and you can enhance it. You can make it bigger or better or whatever. It's still not gonna be better than the actual site. You simply have to go. It's amazing. No expectation amounts to what the actually seeing the Grand Canyon is. Do we have a geologist? Do we have a geologist down there yet? Do we what? What? So if the SUV can take us absolutely anywhere and it can fulfill all our expectations on paper, why are we still disappointed? And the reason for that might be because the problem is not within the SUV itself or within its capabilities of fulfilling our expectations, but the problem is rather with us. You see, sometimes we like the idea of doing something more than we actually like doing it. And in this case, not only do we have buyer's remorse, but also we feel disappointed because we absolutely ruined our fantasy of, if I could just have item X, I would absolutely do activity Y. And if you're one of those people for whom having the said item in their possession makes them feel better and makes their life better, then don't think about it. Don't change anything. If that works for you, then that's fantastic. Now you might be saying, Konstantin, this is horrible. Everywhere I look is just disappointment. It looks like if I make any expectation, I'm bound to just be disappointed. What am I supposed to do? Just not make any expectations? What is this? Expect nothing and appreciate everything? Yep. Thank you very much for watching.
You better finish. Do you want me to roll this intro again?
Okay. No, let me explain. I'm not saying that every single expectation turns into disappointment. Actually, disappointment is only one of the very many options that our expectations can turn into. And all other options are infinitely better than disappointment. I'm also not saying that we shouldn't have expectations, because having expectations actually builds character, motivates us greatly, and gives us something to look forward to. But even if our expectations leave us disappointed, the feelings of joy and excitement and all the other positive stuff that we have collected on our way while we were having these expectations will outweigh the disappointment that we experience. When it comes to the disappointment itself, I would say that it's worth experiencing it at least once to know how it feels, how to deal with it, and how to potentially avoid it in the future. Also, being disappointed makes it easier to deal with future disappointments. Now, I wouldn't recommend going out and getting disappointed on purpose. And I should note that when we're talking about dealing with future disappointments, we're talking about specifically the feelings of disappointments and not the feelings of the situation that you might be currently in. I should also say that if two people have the same expectation, that does not mean that they will have the same outcome. In other words, if one person had the expectation and his outcome wasn't quite satisfactory to him, that does not mean that you should abandon your existing expectation. We should remember that people come to relatively same places in their lives by walking very different paths, and so what works for one person might absolutely not work for another. Now, I hope that the next time you'll have an expectation building up, you'll be able to tell where it's coming from and if it's realistic or not. And I know that sometimes it's worth keeping unrealistic expectations, because if the expectations is so unrealistic that you might never even come close to achieving it, then that means that by never coming close to achieving it, you can never get disappointed. However, that sounds closer to something akin to a wish, and that's also a completely different topic. If you take one thing from this video, I hope that it's the idea that expectations are very powerful and can make us extremely happy if we understand where they come from and know how to properly manage them. If we can adjust our expectations to fit closer to realistic outcomes, that might give us more bursts of satisfaction that will keep us going and make us happier and potentially make us not as scared of future expectations, unlike taking on one big expectation that might never pay out. Although it could be argued that you can never be disappointed if you never give up. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Konstantin, and I hope you enjoyed hanging out with me in my drone. Please consider subscribing if you'd like to see more content, and share this video if you'd like to help me out. If you have any suggestions or would want me to cover a specific topic or simply want to talk to me, you can do that in the comments. I'm always in the comments. If you liked this video, consider watching my previous video. And as always, what's happening in your drone? What are you thinking? Well, that's it for now, and I will see you in the next one. Now, electrical shock started at 15 volts, and each consecutive electrical shock was 15 volts higher, so 15, 35, shit, holy shit. With a giant machine that would have been administering electrical shocks. In the same room with participant number clap